hopefully that should go red, and it has. Fantastic. I am here today with Liberal Cluck, who person whose video came into my recommended. Had a little listen to a debate he did, and the person he discussed immigration and such with, was a rather disagreeable person. Nevertheless, I found myself thinking there was an interesting line of conversation to have with someone that, whilst largely in agreement with me on quite a few issues on immigration, I found a bit more, or less to the left rather, than where I would sit normally. So asked for a conversation, he said yes, and here we are now. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Honestly, I'm shocked by a few things about this whole thing. One, that YouTube is recommending me to anyone. That's crazy to me. And
I get very
two,
interesting recommendations.
yeah, and two, like, so I started this channel. I started this channel during COVID. And the whole reason why I started this channel, well, there's a few of them. One was because I felt like I was wasting my time when I was just playing video games by myself. So I was like, let me stream it and see if it feels like less of a waste of time. But three is because I found that people want to talk to people who stream more than they do just like a random asshole on the internet. And I was like, well, I don't have to make it big, but if I can tell people, hey, I have a stream, do you want to come debate me on stream? I'll get more people that bite on that. And I've never actually had somebody like find me, and be like, hey, I want to talk to you. You're the very first person. So that's the second thing that I'm shocked about this entire interaction.
What are the odds? I like to think that the more interesting side of YouTube is the sort of the smaller side, right? Because there's so many big channels which sort of hoover up the attention. But
yeah,
sometimes the more authentic stuff is found in the quieter side.
Sometimes I'll get recommended like small conservative channels pop up on my YouTube algorithm sometimes.
All the time.
And really, and I'll post a comment in their videos because I know they're going to see it. They're a small channel. They're going to see the comment eventually, unless you're like me and you don't really check it for days and days and days. But asking them to debate, and nobody ever does want to debate. Conservatives are chicken shit. Like, they really are. They do not want to debate, and it is insane to me. When I first got into like politics, it was the left is afraid to debate. The left is afraid to debate, and I don't think that was ever true, but that was the narrative. And like, conservatives are so scared to debate. That's why I end up debating people like people who have completely different values than me, like Ryan, the guy that you saw me debate. Like, our values are just so out of line. And it's hard to debate somebody with different values because you don't have a common goal that you're trying to reach. So I can't be like, empirically, this would be better because he's got different values. So even if empirically it'd be better to get to what I want, he wants a completely different America than I do.
It was staggering hearing some of the stuff that was said, which we'll touch on in a second actually, because I've put ICE as one of our themes. But it's really, I suppose, alarming that someone's just like putting this stuff out there, like talking about people from different nationalities as though they're some like evil harbinger or something.
Like, you're from Britain, which apparently it's like a boogeyman for the American right. Like, they think that Britain has just been taken over by violent radical Muslims. There are no-go zones where if you even step foot across this line as a woman, you're going to get raped and murdered. Like, that's what they believe.
Isn't it? I mean, just off camera, there's evil immigrants who have a gun. Just you can't see them, but they're
right. Oh, okay. they're out there though. Gotcha.
But no, you're quite right. I mean, America's relationship with us has been interesting for a while, right? Like, there's a lot of American capitalists who have taken quite an interest in some of our state assets, like the NHS and such, and so they have latched onto these sort of culture war topics, as you've just said, right? Oh, the immigrants taken over. There's no-go zones for white British people, to try and make their parties gain more support through the sort of spectre of racism and nationalism and such, to then buy up our assets. And so that's why there's been such a focus on pretending like there's no freedoms in Britain anymore, and there's like cities that have been taken over by supposedly evil migrants and such. It's all just a tactic to try and gain more wealth and such.
Yeah.
Alarming.
I mean, there's people who actually believe it though. For the creators, yes, it's all about clout. It's all about money. But like the people down on the ground voting for Trump, they believe this shit.
Yeah, because they their access is for one, the power of media is a big thing, right? Like if you're watching the same scare stories all the time, like of course you then start to see, black people and people who don't speak English as a first language as some massive scare story. But also, they're not, some of them not even remotely close to the places where it's happening. So
Yeah.
they have no embodied experiences of, say, a city centre, and genuinely believe that within a second of walking there, you'll be mugged and stabbed, and all these horrible things will happen. Right?
It's like I don't know if you know who Destiny is, but he always says it was insane that these people in like Nebraska, the middle of nowhere, are worried about immigrants taking over America because the fucking immigrants aren't going to bumfuck Nebraska. They're going, they're going to the cities where the people who are voting against immigration are not. So even within like our own country, the people who are voting, who have these ideas about what immigrants are or what cities are like, they even within our own country, you're literally driving distance from one. You can go see it for yourself if it's really that bad. And they don't, and they just stay in their ignorance.
I mean, part of that is like routine, right? Like people are in. It's hard to get out of routine, and that's true of anything, right? Like it can be. I'll give you an example. I love running. Like I go for running quite a bit, but a few years ago I weighed a bit more than I do now. Like I've had to get myself a bit healthier and fitter to be at a point where I like going for a run and such. But one of the hardest parts isn't the actual run itself. It's getting out of bed in the morning and taking yourself up and around to do your 10K when it's a colder day, you're nice and warm underneath your quilt or whatever. Like it's getting out of bed and doing it. It's changing the status quo. And so for a lot of people, even as they know there's something a bit wrong about what Fox News is spewing out, or maybe the claims that Donald Trump and JD Vance have made about Haitians is a little bit suspect, the simple routine thing, and it's been true in America for a while, I think, because even obviously Trump's a new addition, but there's been this undercurrent of racism and openly racism in America for some time. It's so ingrained that it's hard for a lot of these sort of rural conservative types, and even when I say rural, just like not like super urban conservative types, to get out of these habits.
And they don't call it racism anymore. That term shuts them off, which is like, it's a part of the reason why they're able to control the narrative so much, is because there's so many terms that they've been able to demonize to a point where it shuts off like half of America. If you say the word racism, then half of America's not even going to listen to you.
Yeah, but it's every term, isn't it? Because I think every word that we'd use to try and to say they'll
demonize that word.
Yeah. Exactly.
They call it xenophobia now, and they think that's okay. Like I was told that by not even a conservative. Like he's a guy that went onto a panel and he said that compassionate immigration is a thing that we should do as America, which I completely 100% agree with. But then he was like, "Oh yeah, no, that's not racist." Talking about the other people who are talking about the low IQ Somalians who fuck their cousins. Oh, am I allowed to cuss on your stream? I've already done that like 12 times. But who fuck their cousins. And he's like, no, that's not racism. That's xenophobia. And xenophobia is okay. Like the same guy had both of those beliefs. And it's just like, okay, what is driving you? That's why when I was talking to Ryan, it wasn't very contentious. It was more me trying to figure out what his values are. Why is it that, because he didn't vote for Trump. And it's easy for me to debate a Trump supporter because I can just be like, hey, these are things that Trump is doing that you claim you are against. You were against when, you made up the idea that Biden was doing these things. And Trump is just blatantly doing it. Like, it's easy for me to debate a Trump supporter. But for him, it's like he didn't even vote for Trump. He doesn't support Trump. So I had to figure out, like, what is it that and I still am working on that. what is it that you believe in? And as you saw in my video, I was able to take the things that he believed in and twist them to match very cleanly onto what I want. I always used the welfare. I was using the welfare system in that video, and he just outright denied it. Um, do you know what I'm talking about? Do you
Yeah,
remember that
yeah,
part
no,
of the video?
yeah, no, I watched a good chunk of the chat with Ryan, and it was interesting because yeah, I was hearing you making these points and trying to sort of suggest, but yeah, maybe there's yeah, an element more to this, and maybe there's an element of actually we could be doing something more here. And it just keeps going back to this, as you were saying. Oh, these people have different cultural values, are going to destroy a way of life. They're low IQ or whatever, and all these sort of fairly thinly veiled racial remarks and such,
Yeah.
which was quite fascinating.
Yeah, for him, it was like we can only let people in that have quote unquote American values, but he couldn't cleanly define American values. He just knew what he didn't want in the country.
Exactly,
It wasn't like you have
it's
um
exclusionary. It's not they aren't seriously trying to create some value because they know they aren't, because they know if they actually upheld that, many supposed Americans would have to go, because if you he's talking about and they all do, it's not just him obviously, like they're talking about the violence of immigrants. Well, what's America doing right now with their ICE raids? Like, what we're smashing up city centres, grabbing people off the streets, and they've actively tried to recruit like white supremacists and far right militias into their organisation. So tell them as they're not violent. Like,
yeah.
it's ludicrous.
Were you I don't know how much American news you get. Did you hear about the Ukrainian woman that got stabbed on that bus by a
I
black
must
man?
confess I haven't.
Okay. Let me give you a little bit of a background to this. So, woman, refugee from Ukraine. All right, great. We love that. She goes onto a bus, and there was a man behind her who ends up stabbing her. And the right wing picked up on this because the Ukrainian woman, a pretty white woman, getting stabbed by a black man. Oh my gosh! And also, we find out that he was out on bail. Do you know what bail is? Like, do y'all? You know what
Yeah,
that term? Okay.
yeah, I'm aware
Um,
what bail is.
all right, I just don't know if y'all have a different term for it in
No,
Britain. You know,
no, I know, yeah, that's fine. Let's get on.
so yeah, so he was out on bail. So that becomes like a Democrats are soft on crime narrative, right? So it like has all these elements that the right wing really loves to harp on. What they don't tell you is one, that the man was out on bail. That is true, but he was out on bail for abusing the 911 system. So it wasn't even like he was out on bail for like a violent crime or anything like that. So like that makes a huge difference in the narrative. And then two, one of the things they talk about is like, oh yeah, he's been locked up several times for these violent crimes, and that is true. He had been locked up for like robbery and shit, but he had served his time, and they let him out. Like it wasn't so they mixed the narratives in a way to make their audience believe that he was on bail for a violent crime, and then he gets out and he goes and stabs this beautiful white woman, um and that means the Democrats are soft on crime. I forgot
Yeah,
why
no,
this.
it's exactly right, right? Like they, as you've just said quite eloquently there, they love to paint a picture rather than see things as like an evidence based way of analyzing something, right? Like the idea is to have someone think, oh, there is a black person that is a danger to the white race. Is the sort of chorus narrative of it, because as you've just said, they don't care that, like, logically this isn't something that you can really predict for beyond like analyzing mental health and the fact that people in the incarceration system maybe don't get the things they need to help them come back into society. It's just, oh, it's a scary black person. Clearly the only solution is to throw out all the ideas about crime that we've come to realize and just go back to like deporting and killing prisoners and all the other sort of fantasies that the far right have for the country.
And that guy, he was having a mental health episode. There was a systemic failure, and that guy should not have been on the street. But he should have been in a mental health ward, not a prison. Because
exactly, and that's true for many prisoners, right? Like the mass incarceration policies of the US, both tacit and explicit, have massively failed vast sections of the population.
Mm-hmm.
And these tie directly back into years of Republican policy, just pumping money into the incarceration of people rather than
Yeah,
actually addressing the material conditions.
that is getting better. And I can speak from a personal standpoint because I work in a prison. I'm a counselor
Ah, okay.
in a prison, so that is getting better, at least in blue states. As a matter of fact, like, so do you know what medicated assisted treatment for opioid disorder is?
So again, sorry.
Do you know what medicated assistant treatment for opioid disorder is?
Not specifically, but I could probably imagine. But please tell me.
So there's medications that are available now that help you with cravings if you're addicted to opioids. You know, like fentanyl and heroin and painkillers.
Yeah.
There's medications on the market now that are available for people who are addicted to opioids. There's all kinds of conservative like arguments against it. Oh, you're just trading one drug for another, blah blah blah. This bullshit. But it is like really, really, really helpful for helping these people who are addicted to opioids get back on their feet, be able to deal with the mental health issues that they have, be able to get a job, be able to reconnect with their family. It is immensely helpful for a lot of people. And part of my job is to set these people up with an appointment when they get released so that they can either continue or start on that kind of treatment when they get out. Um, I was talking to a man from Tennessee, and he was like, yeah, there's nothing like that around where I am. Tennessee being a very,
Deeply Republican state.
yes.
Yeah.
And I didn't believe him. There was a part of me that didn't believe him. But I started looking. I told him, all right, give me your address. And I started looking, and I did eventually find something for him, but like the amount of clinics that just didn't offer it was staggering to me. Because they're so ass backwards. And I got a little funny anecdote, and then I'll let you go. I was talking to somebody who is very close to me, a family member, and we were talking about politics, MAGA person, and she said something about, well, what do you think about all these Democrats wanting to give drugs to all these drug addicts? And I'm like, are you talking about like a harm reduction site or whatever? And she's like, she didn't really know what that meant, but then she told me that one of her friend's daughters is actually on the program. And I was like, well, do you want to take that program away from your daughter? And then your friend's daughter? And she's like, no, because I love her. But you want to take it away from everyone else? Like, what is going on here?
But that speaks to that illiteracy that almost is endemic on the right at this point. Like in their own lives, they clearly like it when there are programs to help them and when there's money put into like
Yeah.
setting up rehabilitative, caring structures for people. But when it's told to them via Fox News or via one of their right-wing media outlets, it's like, oh, this is a scary thing that's going to ruin the American way of life. You must vote against Democrats all the time to ensure this never happens. Like it's like with every single time with the ICE raids, they like it when it's happening far away from them, where it's, oh, the bad criminal immigrants are being detained and we're making America safer. But when an ICE raid happens in your town, when it's like your previous members of the community that are just suddenly snatched away and disappeared off to some prison somewhere, it's, oh, but she's one of the good ones. He's one of the good ones. There's no actual thought put into what it means to have this policy, which is sad because I think a lot of these conservatives probably wouldn't be conservatives if they really thought of it. If they genuinely like if it was like a laid out to them in black and white,
Yeah.
probably wouldn't.
Well, I
wouldn't
mean,
have that
you see that with Obamacare, right? Like we recently the ACA. It wasn't even the subsidies. Hi. It's half and half. Okay, the bigger ones are yours. So we had enhanced subsidies during COVID, so it was like higher subsidies. And they were about to expire, which was going to raise everyone's health care that was on Obamacare. And there was huge backlash against that. But these people voted for a man who promised to get rid of the ACA altogether. And they didn't even know when this shit first came out. They didn't even know that Obamacare and the ACA was the same thing. The amount of conservatives that was like, oh yeah, I don't support Obamacare, but I support the ACA. Oh my gosh, that was a fun time for us.
It's staggering, but it's exactly the same thing again, isn't it? Obama is the boogeyman that they have to, that the GOP love to put front and center. But it turns out, as you've just said, they quite like the things which Democrats do, because it's not just Obama, right? It's Democrats carry, as you just said earlier, they're soft on crime, they're soft on XYZ, but things Democrats do are supported. People like it when they can afford their healthcare. People like it when their bus has a regular route, and when their loved ones have access to welfare and decent schooling and such. But that isn't the stuff that's said when you look at the media. That's not the stuff that's said when they go onto their Twitter, for instance, and it's just like non-stop scare stories about oh, this person that's black killed a person. Clearly Democrats have let racial equality go too far or whatever. It's just non-stop BS which radicalizes people into basically being a loyal MAGA type person.
Yeah. Do you know any of the conservative creators in America? Content creators?
I mean, sure. In terms of the big ones, so obviously your Ben Shapiro's, your Candace Owens, your Matt Walsh, all those sort of the ones who go viral every so often because they tweet out something just horrific. And obviously there's a C beyond that as well.
Yeah, but, I'm a part of that C beyond that. I'm way towards the shore because, yeah. But I get to talk to this guy sometimes. His name is Admiral Gibbs. He's been on. Do you know who Wick is? He's kind of a.
I don't know who Wick is.
Okay, he's a liberal, but he does debate panels. But yeah, Admiral Gibbs, and I went through his Twitter the other day. And I saw where he posted something about, I told Pisco this, and he said that I was wrong, but turns out I was right. And the article was about election fraud. And it said that somebody was convicted of 33 counts or something like that of falsifying ballots. What she did was she had mail-in ballots sent to Republican elected officials. So the headline said Democrats election fraud. That was what the headline was saying. But when you read the actual article that was posted, she was somebody trying to prove that election fraud is a thing that could easily be gotten away with. So I don't know if she was identified as a Democrat or a Republican or not, but the talking point she was trying to prove was a MAGA talking point. She was on MAGA's side on this one. So he took that as, this is a Democrat actually trying to commit election fraud, whereas this was a person that looks like it was on his side committing election fraud. And I'm just
it's infuriating, isn't it?
It can be, yes. Especially since these people, they won't talk about it. They won't get into the nitty gritty. They want to, first of all, dismiss you as having TDS.
From
that's
derangement.
Yes.
Just so insulting too. The idea, not insulting in the sense that it actually has any weight, but the idea that this is something which is given the same credence as actual mental health situations and such, and
the idea that I'm the one deranged. The idea that I'm the one deranged is the insulting part, because all you fuckers are the one that are deranged. It's you will defend this guy to the ends of the earth, no matter what he fucking does. But I'm deranged. I have reason behind why I feel the way I do.
Yeah, it's the same stuff that, it's fascism firstly, but it's also it's the same stuff that an abuser would say, right? Oh, well, you're so fixated on me. Why'd you keep obsessing over everything I do? And it ignores entirely the fact that they've done the things to make someone talk about it. I suppose that does bring us on to, I must say, it's been quite pleasant actually agreeing with you on pretty much all the stuff that you've said, right? We've been in quite a lot of accordance. The GOP then as a thing in society, we're clearly the idea of the sort of we often imagine like liberals and conservatives as like two sides of the coin, and often like the idea that someone made the simile to me is that it's like a plane. You need a left wing and a right wing, and you got to have both sort of flying along. But the GOP, as we see it now, has as you say, they sort of they've devolved into this deranged status now, where they're so built around Trump, and anyone who has left in the party is either completely loyal or will sort of keep quiet on the things they clearly don't like about Trump to be part of the MAGA movement. And so when you see this, and especially as you're in America as well, like for me, like whilst we've got our own, there's definitely similar stuff happening in Britain, but we're watching this unfold. What would you say is the direction that now needs to happen in terms of dealing with the GOP? Do you think that there needs to be something like more radical that needs to be done with politics in the US now?
Yeah, there's a lot of things. First of all, if and when the Democrats get power, they have to hold every single one of these fuckers accountable. Honestly, I was thinking about this today. If they get the House, the rest of their time, because they're not going to pass, and if they don't get the Senate or the presidency, they're not really going to pass anything. They pass out of the House like things that we need for affordability, and let it rot in the Senate, let it rot on the president's desk. Let it get vetoed. You could do that, but most of your time needs to be impeachment after impeachment, hearing after hearing after hearing, impeachment. Um, and for everything, all of the things. Do not let him get away with anything, even if it dies in the Senate, because you need 63 whatever people in the Senate to vote to convict. Putting all that shit out there is helpful. Like
Agreed.
people don't know about how corrupt the Trump coin is. People don't know that a woman bought a bunch of Trump coin, and then her son was fuck, what do they call it when he forgives the crimes? Um
Given clemency,
Clemency is pardoned.
pardoned.
Yeah. He was pardoned, but like people don't know that. People don't know that his son-in-law is like going around making foreign deals off the back of the power of the presidency. We had a whole like year of this shit from Joe Biden, where they had like a impeachment inquiry, could not connect Joe Biden to it at all, and they still made such a big deal about it. Um,
It's that, I mean, as Ash says in the
there's so
chat.
much. There's so much. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Read your chat.
Nuremberg 2.0.
Yeah, we need that's what we need. Yes, absolutely. And the people like Kristen Noem and Stephen
Christy
Miller,
Nome,
they need to be held criminally accountable for the criminal things that they are doing. I don't, if they're like, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't actually know what's just criminal and what's just against, norms. That's another thing that needs to happen, is we need to look at all this shit that he was doing, and we need to codify that this will get you depowered. This will get you in prison. One of the problems that we have with the Epstein law is that
yeah,
there's no way to enforce it. Actually, it wasn't written in code that if you fail to do this, you're going to go to jail, or if you fail to do this, we're going to kick you out of the seat of power. But that's what needs to happen. We need to make it to where you can't, like the emoluments clause, that there needs to be like an auto. If you are found to break this clause, do you know what that is?
yeah.
Okay, if you are found to break the emoluments clause, you're just impeached. Like that needs to be codified, because
you're right though. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like the idea that all of this stuff wasn't, because like I think it speaks to the problems in politics, like the idea that a lot of them see themselves as a bit untouchable, in that they're sort of, well, we hear the laws, but these are really for you, the citizens. We've got the ability to skate through a lot of this. But as you've said quite eloquently, Trump and his family are basically using office to make themselves loaded. They've made so much money since they've taken power. Again, they made money last time, right? But
yeah,
and even more this time.
The Democrats also need, like, we need new Democrats, because they have failed so spectacularly in the last decade.
Again.
Okay, so one of the arguments that's happening on one of the Reddits that I'm a part of, Destiny. Some people over there might know who that is. Um, is like the people are mad at leftists for bitching about Democrats because vote blue no matter who and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And like, which I agree, after the primaries, vote for whoever the Democrat is because fuck the Republicans. But people are mad at leftists for bitching about Democrats. And they'll be like, well, what leftist has been able to win a purple state? What leftist? And I'm just like, okay, bitch, you have lost to Donald Trump twice. Like, you have lost to Donald Trump twice. You lost the popular vote the second time. That is fucking insane. That like you are still simping for people like Chuck Schumer after spectacularly like lose like, and they're like, oh, we didn't lose that bad. Any loss to this fucker is a huge loss. Like, what do you mean you didn't? We should be winning Texas. We like.
No,
Goodness
you
gracious.
again. I find myself agreeing. The Democrats, because they have so many people like Chuck Schumer, basically shutting down a lot of the, turning the anger at this situation into someone that can say, yeah, actually, when we win, you're going to be in court explaining all the awful stuff you've done for the last 4 years and before that as well, right? But
Yeah.
as you
Yeah.
said, they don't have that energy. And too many of them don't see that they need to step up to the situation of fascism. They need to be ready to actually take a step forward. Interestingly, I find so I would clearly you want the party to be a bit more radical, a bit more proactive in dealing with stuff. Sort of not because it's obviously like when we say Democrat Party, it's not as though it's like one room and everyone's just sat in it. Like it's a
Yeah.
broad network of many smaller groups and people running in different state situations and such. But
Yeah.
would I have you in agreement that the party, or on the whole, they need to take a step to the left and they need to say, yeah, actually, we've got to meet fascism with something which is more than just running another Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton-esque person.
Yeah.
That's
I
gonna
mean, I voted for Bernie Sanders twice. Um, yeah, I agree with that. I do think that there is an argument for running more moderate candidates in purple state and purple districts and red districts. But where we can, we should be running more left wing people to push the party to actually move instead of like being stagnant all of the time. One of the biggest problems I have with the party isn't even so much that they're not left enough, is that they're so stagnant. They're okay with getting in power and not doing anything with it. Like, yes, we nibble around the edges. We got infrastructure, which was a really cool thing. Under Joe Biden, we got the America Rescue Plan and the CHIPS Act. All really good stuff. Where the fuck is my universal health care? That was promised to me back in 2008 when we elected Obama. Where what did we do? You got power again. Why didn't we even touch that? Didn't do shit with it. Do you know what the filibuster is?
yeah, yeah,
Any
like the
Democrat that gets into office that does not want to get rid of the filibuster needs to be primaried. Like, end of story. Like, you got to get rid. I'm glad we have the filibuster now because it's stopping the Republicans from doing awful things. But I'm a true believer that Democratic policies are popular. When people actually know what the Democratic policies do and not the Republican caricature of what Democratic policies are, it is popular. I think that if we're actually able
absolutely.
to get in and pass Democratic policies, which we have not been able to do because of the filibuster, people will like it. And then when the Republicans get in and try to dismantle their the popular Democratic policies and try to enact their own unpopular policies, they're going to get killed in the elections, just like they have been.
Exactly. Like,
One of the go ahead.
well, it's just to build on that point, really. The idea that the left, is some nebulous, like, oh, they're scary and bad and you can't do left wing things. Well, no, because all the things which have been suggested within sort of left wing circles, and they're often not even that radical. Like, the things you could do, more public works, more funding for schools and transport and such are massively popular,
Yeah.
and have had support even decades ago when we weren't even sort of as familiar with it in mainstream circles and such. But here we are, still trying to get Democrats to commit broadly to this. So then, to offer somewhat of a question of sorts, because I'm aware that this debate so far has been very enjoying quite a bit because we're again largely in agreement.
Yeah.
Would you say that the Democrats also need to be willing to push some American conventions and such, like so when the GOP, for instance, like wring their hands about various moral concerns of theirs. So like um, when like the respect in politics and respectability and all that sort of stuff, and obviously, and it's not just like Trump and his like literal cabinet, but quite a few of them. Would you say that there needs to be like less of a route in for the Republicans to be able to say, well, you need to come and meet us in the middle, and you need to come and like chum up with us to like the
Yeah.
idea that Washington, because like people, one of the reasons a lot of people are so disengaged with politics, even when they want things to change, is because they envision politicians as these bodies who just go to Senate and Congress and such, and they go into the House, and they're just sort of having their debates and their readings and such, and then just off to lunch together, and there's no like sense that it's actually representing them. Would you say that for that perception in part to change, and it is unfair in many ways because obviously it's media dictated, and a lot of it is not very fair. Would you say for that to change, there needs to be almost like a, you are not our friends, you're not currently representing American values, we're going to come and prosecute all of you if you're going to continue to aid and abet Donald Trump's administration and such?
For the ones that are defending Donald Trump right now, absolutely. There are some. I mean, honestly, I fucking hate Marjorie Taylor Greene and everything she stands. I think she's a dumbass. I think that having her in power is detrimental because she's just a fucking idiot. But also, she did buck Trump on things that she was morally grounded on. And same with Laura Loomer and Thomas Massey. I would much rather have 49 of those people in my Senate and whatever one less than half in the House of those people than anybody, even if they agree with some of my policy positions, that's going to defend Trump right now. That's going because one of the problems is with the Democratic Party and is inauthenticity. Trump, one of the things that got Trump to win, and that's what you were talking about. Like you get in, you say one thing when you're electing, and you get in and you move to the center, you start moving rightward because you don't actually believe the things that you are trying to say. You just want power. You just want to keep your job. We need to purge that from the Democrats, but also we need to like I said, those ones that were capitulating because they wanted to stay in power, they also need to be purged from the right by Democrats because the right's not going to do it. Any way we can.
Well,
Um,
yeah. I mean, to offer some pushback on that point, because I do largely agree, but Marjorie Taylor Greene and Laura Loomer, as someone says in the chat, Ash, they would strike me as definitely some of the people that would need to also be part of this, because for as much as they have criticised Trump, it's like their criticisms don't change the fact they've done and voted for and said many of the things which have contributed to this ecosystem we're in now. So I would say that whilst, I mean, it's not like I'm not saying that, yeah, you're completely wrong there or anything, because I do largely agree with what you've just said. But equally, there does need to be some part of the process of healing would be also saying, okay, even though you've now spoken out against Trump, you did also participate in much of the fascist rhetoric which has led us to this moment, right?
Yeah.
Like, there does need to be some like the Nuremberg stuff we said earlier, right? Like if you've done some, if you're a politician and you've been voting for some of this stuff, like there does need to be some accountability for that.
Okay, so maybe this is where we'll okay. First of all, for me living in America, and maybe for you watching this, but for me living in America, talking to conservatives in America, the bar is in hell. Like at this point, I'm just like willing to look for it to grasp, because we're going to have, conservatives in power. We're going to have MAGA in power. That's just a thing that's going to happen because we're a democracy and this is what people are voting for. So unless we decide that we're no longer a democracy, then and when Democrats get power, we just like go authoritarian, which I don't want. Um, we're gonna have MAGA in power, and I think I would prefer to have somebody who is like, I know what their values are, and I know they're gonna stick to their values. I know that if they were to if whatever came in power the next election was against their values, I know that I can count on them to rail against it with me. Um, than somebody who's going to waffle towards whatever monster gets the presidency next because they want to stay in power themselves. Does that make sense?
I can see what you're saying, but do you think that, like, because I agree, like, you want people who are going to, not want the Nazis in power, but part of that would also be like, if it, like, can you rely on someone that it's not, because like, if you've been part of a Republican Party that has in the Trump camp, right? How can we say that person is trustworthy, like, to be on our side, like to actually try and oppose this stuff? Arguably, they're not they're not breaking from Trump to through some moral realization. They've realized that the GOP might be about to lose power and they might be being swept out with the Trump stuff, and so are trying to. It's like when in the first Trump administration, you had more Republicans sort of saying some stuff, and when Trump tried to overthrow the election, you had like Mike Pence and stuff coming out and saying stuff against it because they realised that he was in an untenable position. Mm-hmm. He was then, obviously going to be appearing in court and such, and going to be getting prosecuted for it, and some of them probably thought, okay, now's a good time to distance ourselves from it because it's in the past. Whereas this time, even though the stuff that Trump's doing is much more escalated, arguably, than the first term, there's been fewer GOP breaks from Trump. Like, and the ones that haven't been too spirited because they're in a much more powerful position, and so there needs to be, from Democrats, I feel, less tolerant a line to because like I agree that not being MAGA is good, but part of ensuring this doesn't happen again is saying, okay, you need to ditch this stuff completely, otherwise we're going to be like, if it's one thing as well to want someone to come and vote for you and such and be part of your team, but that also involves understanding what's going wrong in the first place, and part of that is the wider actions of the GOP for many, many decades now. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah, you'd have to change the systems to disallow those actions. You would have to change the systems to where, first of all, somehow we got to get it to where the president cannot unilaterally stop enforcement of the law, because that's what's happening, right? Like the executive branch, which the president is head of, is in charge of enforcing the law. If Congress passes a law and the Trump doesn't want to enforce it, then how do we get that to work? We saw that with the TikTok ban, right? Congress. Go ahead.
Sorry to cut you off then, but I agree with that. Right? Like, we have to work out how we stop the next set of leaders and such doing this. But to get that sorted, there's thousands even of GOP officials in various positions that Trump has literally appointed, right? His lackeys, basically, that are actively stopping process from being done. Like all the Trump-appointed judges who hand out cheap warrants and such. Trump appointed officials which he wants to oversee the next election, essentially be in a good position to help him win more likely, right? So part of, if you've been involved in that, in my view, if you're someone like Marjorie Taylor Greene, and even someone like I know Massey's spoken out a bit more and he's certainly, I wouldn't say he's on the same level as MTG or anything, but yeah, he's still part of a party which used fascism to get into power, right? Like in my view, I've seen some left wing people describe like a almost reconstruction esque element to what we need to do, and I feel that's quite accurate because the party is so toxic and so steeped in just this awful far right rhetoric that there almost needs to be like an entire like the word purge is has carries negative connotations, but in some effect you would need to say, well, you know, how, like, what on earth is your merit to continue in your position given all the stuff you've been complicit in?
So that would be something that the voters would have to decide. I mean, we're a democracy, right?
Of course, yeah.
I'm not willing to give up the democracy in order to get specific people out of power. But if these people did commit crimes, and that's the important part, right? They had to have had committed crimes. We can't just like make up crimes. And I'm also not okay with the show me the person, I'll show you the crime type mentality that Trump has. But if these people did commit crimes, then yes, we should be investigating them. We should be purging them through the courts. And I think that there probably are a lot of the people around Trump who you can look at their public actions and be like, oh yeah, that's probably a crime. Or we see this in public. There's probably a crime there somewhere, and being able to investigate those things. I'm down for that. What I don't want to do is like, oh, MTG, you voted with in your role as a House member, you voted with Trump a lot of times. Therefore, we're going to figure out if you've committed a crime, because just voting with Trump isn't a crime. Voting for anything in the Congress isn't a crime.
Of course, but when we're saying holding accountable, it's not just like because it's not just the vote; it's all the stuff that comes with it. Like MTG specifically, yeah, massively helped spread some of the election lies that Trump has been saying.
Yeah.
The anti-trans stuff, the racist stuff. Like she's very much front and center at much of the stuff that has happened. And
none of that's illegal in America, though.
No, but it's not about illegality. It's about, you know, how do we stop the next fascist from being in this position? Like as you said, right? Like Trump has been able to do so many things, and it's shown many of the faults in the American system's ability to stop fascism from wrecking the place. And like as you say, the checks and balances like haven't stopped Trump from sending ICE into cities and deploying the National Guard or whatever. Like, so there needs to be something in place for the next time, so that we're able to. And part of that is saying, okay, if you have been involved in this rise of the far right via the Republican Party, you need to be held accountable. And I think that it is going to be a bit transgressive. And I don't think because it's a blurry line, right? Because I don't think we're saying, oh, you know, if you've like voted Republican, you're going to be put in a prison cell or anything. But at the same time, if you've been in House of Representatives, House of Senate, like just sat there voting for all this stuff and then sharing Trump memes and participating in all the stuff that contributes to that societal fascism, there should be some consequences. And one of them should be, well, should you really be in a position of political power able to sign your name onto bills which ruin people's lives?
Yeah. There might... So... There's a thing that, like, all right, a lot of the things that we see that are happening that are so awful, they didn't happen in the past because of norms, not laws. And one of the big things that needs to happen is that we need to make these norms into laws. And one of those laws that we could pass, like, all right, we have freedom of speech in America, right? That's a part of our Constitution.
Yeah.
I think that maybe, just maybe, there may be some kind of like carve out we can make for elected representatives, right? Like elected representatives cannot go onto the public square, social media, and just blatantly lie. And when I say blatantly lie, like you better have your P's and Q's together before you post anything. If you're elected, I could see a law like that being passed and being useful for that. But as of right now, the way things are in America, you can't do anything about that. There's nothing. You can vote them out. I can point out the lies, and hopefully enough people listen to where they will vote her out next time. Like that's kind of the best we can do with the system we have right now. So unless we're just like toppling the system and starting anew, then like we just like that's really there's
Well,
nothing we could do
yeah.
about MTG being transphobic online.
Well, you may have some hints as to my wider sort of social views and my
So
wider
you
political
want like
views,
America to
but
go through a complete revolution? That's what it sounds
well,
like.
there does seem to be something massive coming up in the future. But in terms of pragmatically, I still think there's a lot of stuff that is being left on the table a little bit here, right? Like because when we think about what the Republican Party have done, in like when they're lying and such, MTG is a high-profile example, but they all do it. They all the caravan of migrants are coming across the border right now, and there's they're flying them to Republican cities to try and make them turn the state blue, and all the other lies and all the other nonsense and such, and they're stealing welfare, like just lie after lie. And it's not just Trump; it's like the whole party have adopted many of these things, and not even as like overt statements, but as rhetoric, as ideology, and so. Part of the reason we're saying there needs to be something more than hoping we win an election and then changing it once we're in power is that there's a social element to this, there's a cultural element to this, which I think also needs to be tackled, and that speaks to like social media is a good example. Without Elon Musk buying Twitter and turning it into a cesspit, massive part of the radicalization of people on the right doesn't take place because suddenly they aren't receiving every single day doctored and manufactured posts by bot accounts and by people who've set up an account just to spread far right stuff to people's social media. Helping them cultivate far right opinions. And I think that whilst I'm a pragmatist, I think that we shouldn't give up on winning elections and trying to do things within the system we have. And there's absolutely a timeline in which a Democrat that takes a few steps to the left, a few big steps obviously, but a few steps to the left, wins in 2020, wins midterms for Democrats, and then also wins in 2028, and then puts Trump and his exactly. But equally, there's a timeline where they don't do that because they're fighting against lots of money interests. We get someone like, I don't know, Gavin Newsom running in 2028. He maybe does all right, but doesn't do enough to flip all the states he needs to. Trump, we don't even know. Trump getting a third term, I don't think is 100% off the table. Like, I don't think it's as likely as some people because I do think there'd be some, the optics aren't great, but I absolutely think he would still be around government, like in the same way that Musk is like just in various positions of influence. Like Trump would still probably in the White House, right? They'd move the residency of the president to somewhere, and Trump would just get to stay in his like disgusting renovated White House. But the point is that if we're not willing to take the step to the left and be transgressive and think beyond just what is the parameter now, we risk the Nazis and fascists that have taken residency in the GOP just getting to stay there and just maybe shed a few faces to look like they've moved on and just doing the next thing. Ash thinks that Trump's going to try and get a third term, by the way. So
I think Trump is too old and he's losing a lot of steam. All right. So what needs to happen is, first of all, like the laws need to change, right? So we have free speech in America, so we can't do anything about people going on Twitter and lying about shit.
Free speech isn't freedom from consequences, though, right? Like you can,
Sure.
It's not a violation of your First Amendment rights to get your account suspended.
Sure, but it would be a violation for the government to force Twitter to suspend accounts like that.
But that's like if someone. It's not like the government forcing you to, is it? It's having accountability in social spaces. Like there's nothing that is written in law that says you have the absolute right to have an account on a service.
We used to have that. Like before, like I said, before Elon took over, we used to have that. And the conservatives cried foul. Oh, this is a violation of First Amendment. No, it's not. It's not. We used to have that. But like the situation we're in now is that the person who owns Twitter does not want that for his platform. And
Yeah.
if the government tries to force that, they would be breaking the First Amendment. We would have to change the First Amendment in order to do that, which is
I don't think
possible.
that's quite true.
You don't
I
think
don't think
so?
it's a. I don't think it's a violation of the First Amendment to have websites comply with what is allowed to be on their platform. Like, because for obviously it's an extreme example, but like if someone goes onto Twitter now and posts like a picture of the someone's house and says, "Yeah, this guy deserves death," like the state has sanctioned. There's justifiable reason then for there to be some intervention, right? Like there's something there to say, okay, this person has not. This person's actions are threatening other people's livelihoods and also therefore their First Amendment rights. Because if you're making threats against someone, then clearly there's going to be something happening. So in that same vein, when Marjorie Taylor Greene goes onto Twitter and says trans people are evil and need to be like have their rights taken away from them and such, that is also a threat to their constitutional rights. That's a threat against them. And so, in the same way, it's like if someone runs at you with a knife, and then someone else shoots that person, like the person who's shot isn't seen as like you've done something that means you're now liable. Like it was done to prevent the other person from dying. So in the same sort of way, you've acted against someone else's ability to post somewhere in order to prevent the other people's rights from being lost, right?
Yeah.
So it's like it isn't something which I think is in any contradiction. And again, as it has been pointed out, it's not as though we're in a state where or we're in a situation where like rights are being untouched, but this may affect it. Like it's already happened. Like we're already
Yeah. So conservatives have no moral authority to be talking about First Amendment or anything. They have lost all moral authority on everything they could everything they've ever said in the past. They have no moral authority for. So, but you're talking to me right now. So like for me personally, yes, the First Amendment has its limits. That's been obvious because we have laws that go against First Amendment. You can't yell fire in a burning in a building that's not set on fire. You can't cause a public panic. You can't do this. So I guess for you, your limit would be, and correct me if I'm wrong, if your speech is trying to lead to the violation of rights of others, such as like the trans people's right to exist as trans people, then that shouldn't be protected by free speech.
Yeah, and I would say that already sort of exists anyway, right? Like because for other groups, like if someone like as we said earlier, like if you post something online which shows you're going to do something horrific, there's justifiable cause there to come and stop that and infringe on someone. You know, like if someone posts incriminating stuff online, like you have cause there to act against said person's.
Well, you can use stuff posted online as evidence, like attempted murder or threatening somebody is illegal, which I guess you could say imposes on the First Amendment and free speech.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like, there's a difference in saying, "Hey, I'm going to Minecraft you," and saying we should vote for the person who's going to disallow trans people to get medical care. Like those are two different things.
But we're not talking about necessarily the person that is saying we should vote for them. We're talking about like a political figure like MTG or any of the other like thousands who have gained their profile off being like promoters of Trump and such, who actively engage in this material and make it their mission to not just spread. It's not just like campaigning for the GOP. It's like the active spreading of. I don't like the term propaganda, but a lot of it is, right? Like where it's just like, this doctor's clinic actually just got this 10-year-old killed because of nebulous reason, and it's like you look into it and it's not true, but it's been seen a million times by various people on Twitter and such. Like,
I think I would be okay I think I would be okay with stripping elected officials of their right to go online and just blatantly lie about shit. I
Exactly.
think I
But
would
then
also
that
be okay with like media companies. Maybe there should be like a classification. You are news, therefore you cannot lie.
exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
but I
And
am not okay with like taking away the individual's right.
well, some
Even
of those
like
individuals, though, like I think, sorry to cut you off then, but some of those individuals, like, because that is another thing that sort of gets come up with. Like, people say, oh, the mainstream media say this, but we say that. But in many ways, it's a pointless distinction because, like, look at the success of some of these, like, right wing independent
mhm.
voices who are funded by dozens of like millionaire, multimedia corporations that enjoy massive sponsorship deals that are in all effects the same weight and visibility of one of these media companies. So I think the individuals like we're talking about that we'd want to be thinking about critically. So the provocateurs and the people who've made it like the career to become like a conservative talking point, they should also be subject to these conditions. If you go onto social media and start spreading hateful bile, I'm sorry, but we're not going to tolerate that. Like you're not protected by any like freedom of speech clause. Like it's not like you're, and yeah, that would mean that a large part of the conservative populace would have to change their views. But good, because you've for too long they've been like preaching hate basically.
So here is the thing about that. For me, to combat that, like the left just has to get good. You know, we like we got to get good. The problem isn't. I think that the problem isn't that like conservative values and what the conservatives want is just so popular in America that we can't. The left just can't compete. I think what's making it hard to compete is the environment of lies being told by politicians and like news organizations, and that's the thing that's making it hard to compete because there's a caricature of the left, which the right, even average Americans believe the left is, and then there's the caricature of the right, which is like fiscally responsible and law and order, which was also like propagated by lies. I think that if we are found a way to tamp down on the lies, then we would be able to win the messaging war a lot easier.
Okay, I
Um,
mean, 'cause that's a really interesting point because I agree, right? Like the caricature is, oh, the right do these things better. They've got more might, they're more committed and such. I completely agree, but these are things that are intentionally cultivated through, and they do this through the massive monetary networks they set up, right? Like because they, as you say, decades of Fox News basically calling anyone in the Democrat Party a communist and claiming that they, are gonna turn America into the USSR and all these like things which have no merit in an actual serious conversation, but are accepted as like an actual like the idea that the Biden administration was like a far left Marxist organization like is just
yeah.
ludicrous. But you speak to these people and they believe that. So part of that is looking beyond the individual and looking at the systems that are in place and saying, okay, you are now not able to profit from producing news. Like if you want to report on the news, you're going to get a budget and you're going to have limits on what you can do with it. It's not going to be like a business venture anymore. And if that were put in place, all of a sudden, why would like some of these people who spend their whole life talking about conservative viewpoints and such, they wouldn't do it because now why if there's no monetary incentive there, then these people aren't going to have these views because they don't care. Like what's she called? I forget her name. But I mean to be on any of them, right? Like people who they're conservative on camera and then off camera they're probably living like a fairly mundane, ordinary life. Like
Yeah.
they care because they're paid to care.
Yeah. They're grifters.
Yeah, exactly. So if you can get rid of the monetary side of it, then huge chunks of that ecosystem are gone, and then that also then makes it easier to actually put in place the laws that would stop someone from setting up a network of just of accounts that spread racist lies about people or anti-trans stuff.
Yeah. So could you imagine though, somebody like Trump having the power to completely demonetize people like Pod Save America and the Bulwark and MSNBC and CNN because he's claiming that they are telling blatant lies?
Maybe a scary thought, right? But arguably that's already happened with him. Um, PBS got shut down and defunded, didn't
Well,
it?
yeah, PBS was an
Um,
explicitly like government funded
no,
organization.
but it was still tethered to it, wasn't it? And it still received funding, which then got struck off. But
Yeah.
and also like scientific research and stuff, and government grants for various programs which were critical of right wing policy to say the environment or
Mm-hmm.
the
Yeah.
way the countries are managed, and then they've been defunded. So arguably that's already happened because there weren't existing protections
Sure, but
to stop this.
the only reason that like people like me would know about that kind of stuff is because we have free press and free speech to be able to talk about it. But if we
Yeah,
had a world where Trump had the kind of power to completely shut up and neuter the reach of whatever he determines is a lie, then we wouldn't like we it would be a lot harder for us to get our message out and tell people what's actually going on.
but we're not saying, or I'm not saying here hand like extreme power to one individual. In fact, we're saying the opposite, right? Like we want a society with as much democratic power as possible. So the power that bodies have right now to be dissipated amongst society, to have a one in which it's easier for people to collectively be able to identify stuff which is
Mm-hmm.
bad faith and wrong and such. But part of that is breaking up the networks of wealth which have concentrated and then led to billions being pumped into producing like, right wing slop.
Yeah.
And that's both the social media side of things where it's like influencers who just like go around talking about scare stories versus networks like Fox News who have made it their entire sort of mission value to promote a conservative outlook for things.
So what
And
does
so
the system look like to stop that? What like give me like a breakdown of okay, so this is what the law says, this is who enforces it, this is how we determine that what this is, if this was a lie or whatever.
okay, so you would have a almost like a regulatory body,
Mm-hmm.
in the same way that if you're selling food or selling some clothing item, you've got to meet various safety regulations. You'd have something online that essentially, keeps an eye on things and makes sure, as with any sort of moderating team, makes sure the stuff that's on a platform is connected to reality for one, but also not causing significant social harm. So, like in the same way that if I uploaded a video to YouTube of like I don't know, like me running over an animal or something, someone might say, "Hey, this is a bit suspect. Maybe you should take this down, please." And so, similarly, if someone is going on social media to lots and lots of followers, posting really hateful stuff, you have something in place to be able to first warn them and say, "Hey, this is not great," and then secondly, identify if this person's continuing to do it that they are causing a social concern and danger, and therefore are liable to have said revenue streams and accounts and such taken down. And because you're in the society, like it's not as though it's something which is disconnected. Like the internet is an online space, but online space is of significant relevance, and so this is something that would need to be considered in a way which is more than just like someone playing a video game or something. It is a place in which culture takes place,
Mm-hmm.
and so in the same way that we don't allow anyone to sell food on a mass level, you would have something to stop politicians from like you will not have the right to post on this site if you are going to campaign against people's human rights, for instance.
Yeah. So okay, sounds like to me also one thing is that you're not only against like allowing the lies, you're also against like things that would go against like there would be social harms, um right? So like your example was like a video of somebody running over an animal.
As in, well, yeah, like it's if I'm making videos which show me doing like objectionable things, right? Like someone comes in and says, "Well, what is this?" You got to stop it, right? Because if I've that's another thing as well. Like if we have this monetary incentive, more people are gonna be inspired to do it, which is exactly what's happened. You've got so many wannabe like the people trying to be the next Ben Shapiro, people trying to be the next Matt Walsh and such. Like every day, there's stuff posted of it's like of the same variety, because they know that the more they tap into this sensationalist narrative, the more attention they'll get, and the more views, money, advertising opportunities, etc. So in the same way that if I started, if I had a channel and it was called like Animals Killed or whatever, and I knew that just by getting more and more views, I was going to be able to monetize it and get sponsorships. Someone then, like YouTube in this example, might say, well, we don't want this to be what is driving views, so off you go. You take these videos down, otherwise delete your channel. Same thing here. If you're trying to make a career out of other people's marginalization, well, no, that's not going to be a case anymore. So then that is deemed something which we don't permit as a monetary act, and we don't have on our social media sites. And so ultimately, yeah, there'd be complaints, but they can get over it, and we don't have to have not like fascism just on social media like within a few clicks.
Okay, so when so you and your method of enforcing this, let's take it back just for a minute, because there's a whole other argument I can have against like censoring things that are bad for us socially. Let's just take it back to lies, because like lies are the thing that I could probably be swayed on. Yeah, we could probably regulate this, right? So and your idea is like a regulatory body, similar to the FTC, FCC, or whatever. My problem with that is if you just have a regulatory body in the government, and somebody like Trump takes over and is able to get the Congress to capitulate the way that he has, then you're going to get this body that you created with like good intentions, against you as somebody that's trying to spread truth and trying to spread democracy and human rights and things like that. And we see that in America right now, as the system is created right now, with like him getting Jimmy Fallon fired, or suing media companies, so that they will take down videos yeah. So like with the system that we have now has shown itself to be abusable. Um, I don't know if I want to give that system more power. Now it's possible to like make it less abusable, and that's where I think my focus would be on.
So I think that part of this approach is, obviously tethered in all the other things that we've been discussing, and left-wing thought in general, right? So breaking up networks of wealth, removing all the GOP fascist officials that are in government floating around, making society better in all the ways, like educationally, quality-wise, etc. But secondly, I think that power is something which inevitably has some element of corruptibility. And so you want to make a society that is as equitable and equal as possible to a degree, like so that people don't have massive advantages to be able to exploit, as you've just said, say, a regulatory body. Thirdly, I think that rather than it being like an appointed, Trump can just pick people, you'd have it having some degree of autonomy from the government, in that like it's like a branch of power, like a regulatory body with people from an academic background or of some, you have to have some qualification almost to do it, which would then obviously still have to be put through the other social checks and such, but would make it less susceptible to, say, Trump just forcing through as many conservative-leaning people as he can to try and get to it. But fourthly, I think there's an element of anything is better than what we're seeing now, right? Because there's not been the attempt to try. There's not been a serious effort to really tackle what's happening in online spaces beyond like just bare bones. Oh, we'll put an ID check in, or we'll do something which doesn't actually address the issue. Like every time people say, yeah, there's a massive problem with right wing conduct online, we get the same. Oh, well, it's censorship if you do stuff. Well, no, it's not. Like if someone, if you went into a shop and you saw someone like, or if you owned a shop and someone came to you and said, right, here's my like Nazi book with just like swastikas all over it. You've not. There's no society doesn't have to tolerate that. It's not someone. It's not a violation of free speech to say this is not permitted in this space. That person is fine to have their views away from everyone else. Second, they speak it out loud, it becomes a threat to others. So it's something which I think is quite easy to actually.
Sure, but what you're talking about right now, is just like Twitter moderation and YouTube moderation.
Yeah, we haven't had that moderation though properly. Because
we did in the past.
Well, I mean, to a degree, but we're aware of what dog whistles are, and using cultural terms. Like these people have, I mean, they're thinly veiled dog whistles, but essentially, they haven't been flagged up and caught by it because they're aware enough to know that if they just change a few terms and make it have the appearance of just political discourse, they can get away with it. So what we're saying is we need to actually like with on Twitter community notes, right? Like someone says, a million immigrants have committed crimes in New York this year. And you get a note underneath it that says, actually, this isn't true, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But that note is seen far fewer times than the actual misinformation. Yeah. And it's like, it's not even really seen as the owner's website has tried numerous times to try and get these notes removed or have them editable or whatever. So evidently the moderation we're seeing now and previously hasn't been enough. What we need to say is, okay, you've chosen to post a lie. You've chosen to engage in this fascist stuff. One strike. If you have another strike, then gone. Change your ways. And that needs to be something which is ultimately going to be something which is enforced, by people across online and offline spaces. In the same way that there's social pressure to people. Like if someone walks down the street in like Adolf Hitler get-up and they're saying, yeah, I support all these horrible things, they receive social pressure and it's permissible to stop that person doing that because you don't want like 10 people doing the same thing the next day. So we do the same thing in online spaces, and then there's fewer Nazis running around on social media and there's fewer opportunities for them to start radicalizing people and lead to the next Trump.
So I don't like that because I feel like we might start circling soon, but there is not a body in the government right now, and even if you created a second body to do this, that I would trust to forever be able to wield that kind of power and not eventually start using it to shut down opposition.
Well, it would need to be something which is democratic, regularly checked itself. Something which is drawing from different bodies of society, but crucially, like it would need to be also something with because one of the sort of untold truths about the world, and it's going to sound a bit silly, is that like I don't want to say facts skew left wing, but they kind of do, right? Like as we both said, right wing political bodies and organizations have just detached themselves from reality. So ultimately, the act of creating this body would have it's not a bias, it's just people on it would inevitably have left-wing ideas to a degree, because this is the worldview that ultimately attaches itself to reality. But that's different from making it partisan. That's just like the people on it are gonna act against fascism because fascism is something which is a threat, and so would need to be moderated. A future administration being able to turn it to its own advantage, I think, is firstly something which has happened anyway, without this in place. It's not as though this is uniquely going to make it worse. But secondly, the way we're implementing this would be accompanied with the breakup of wealth networks and the centering of science and academic integrity into this, and the dissolution almost of extreme power within government and such, because you're not saying it's like, oh, the president just pixies on it. It's like deemed by academic communities, and you'd also have people from the marginalized groups able to sort of have a voice in this space as well, right? Because one of the big issues is that when a Republican speaks out against LGBTQ people, like a lot of the issues aren't as known. So like when like with trans people, they can lie about like, oh, kids are being turned trans on purpose and they're being used, like all these horrible things they're saying, because there's not that same familiarity with transgender people as there is when, say, like if someone breaks the terms of service by posting like a dead body, like we all understand why it's wrong to like do that, but not everyone knows necessarily about trans issues as much. So they don't understand why when Marjorie Taylor Greene says they're like doing all these awful things, it's just a complete lie. So by centering these people also in a regulatory body, you'd then have an intersectional approach, which would be able to dissuade the tendencies of fascism and keep the organization itself more accountable.
So what you're asking for is a government body that just hasn't existed anywhere, I don't think.
We are sort of saying we're taking these radical steps left, right? Like we're trying to do things which haven't really been done before. So of course it's like at some point it has to happen for the first time for it to happen.
Sure, I don't believe that I don't believe that's a possibility. I just don't believe that creating a government body that is not susceptible to being corrupted in the way that it seems like America's government has already been at this point in America history is possible, which is why I think that like having free speech is so important, because when the bodies of government become corrupted in this way, as long as people like me and people like the protesters in Minnesota and our media are able to speak out against it, and as long as we still have our democracy, we can change it. We can course correct. But if we allow our government to be able to silence us, and which Trump has tried to do, if we allow them to, this isn't something you advocate for, but take away our democracy, that's an important part of it, which Trump is trying to do, then like the only other option we're left with is violent revolution, and I don't want that.
I mean, I would say that you said susceptible to corruption, but like it's not. I don't think anyone says, "Oh, this is perfect and nothing will ever change it." Like, but what you're doing is finding a solution which is less corruptible. It's like when you make a building earthquake proof, like no one says this will never fall down, nothing could ever destroy this. You're saying this is far less likely to fall down than the previous design, which didn't have shock absorbers or had a material which was more less flexible and thus more susceptible to a critical failure. So this body, this organization would have less chance of being corrupted because its whole purpose is to identify fascist elements. Basically, you're setting it up to prevent the mistakes that have led to Trump and such. But also, I completely agree that people, whilst there is democracy, there is always a chance of defeating it. But at the same time, we've got to look at how in a democratic country we've got people who are now elected and using the tools of democracy to smash it up. And part of that, and I know we've been talking for a little bit, but part of that is critically analysing the way capitalism has grown and sort of developed in the country, and how that mix of capitalism and right-wing thought has led us to this moment. Because implicated in all the things we've spoken about today has been the monetary goals and the desire for profit and such that is at the core of our capitalist society. And I think that the worries that you have about a regulatory body being corrupted are the same worries we have with anything in society, because of the way our markets have infested themselves into many of our bodies and such. Obviously, we've been talking for a little bit of time. I'm happy to go a bit longer, but I'll let you come back onto that actually. So,
Okay, so I think the difference in like the way in which like we've already seen corruption in America today in our regulatory bodies and such, and which you're talking about, is that if we were to give the government the power to actually silence us in the way you're asking, that's like that institution being corrupted, even if it's harder to corrupt, that institution being corrupted would just be so detrimental to democracy that there may not be any going back from that. And that's why I'm hesitant to agree with something like that. And your point on capitalism, I am a capitalist. I do believe in capitalism, although I do believe that in social programs, I talked a little bit about like where the fuck is my universal health care. There's a lot of social programs that I would want. I think one big problem with our current system, America's current system, is how much power we have allowed people who have made it big in capitalism to have over our democratic processes and our democratic bodies. That is the issue that we need to work on. Capitalism creates wealth for people and it creates prosperity for lots and lots of people. But we can't let those people that have made it big, huge, gigantic gains to be able to corrupt our institutions the way that they have seemingly done in America.
okay. Well, I mean, would it be fair to say that you support capitalism, but you like social programs and such, and like you said, you want it to be more regulated and to there to be a bit more social, like moral good and such there, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
would it be fair to say that it's like social democracy is almost like what you're advocating for, right? Like a sort of a mix of
Yeah. Like I said, I voted for Bernie twice. If that tells you anything.
Yeah, no, exactly right. And pragmatically, yeah, I agree. It's good social democracy is better than like a sort of Trump vision of stuff. But I think the critical point is that we are still in a capitalist world there, and so the financial incentives that capitalism is contingent on make it difficult to have anything not targeted by the capitalists and such, right? Like, because every social program is taking resources of the country and saying we're going to spend this on a bus route for people in the city, or the school to be able to afford their next round of textbooks, or whatever. Like the hospital to have enough beds to help the patients. And so a capitalist thinks, okay, well, this is available resources which might benefit my business. And you get people who say, well, that's how you make the country better, by giving them loads of money to be able to do stuff.
I'm not that.
But, exactly, right? Because inevitably that leads to them pocketing most of it and then not doing that progress. But the critical point is that capitalists will still do that anyway, because every decision they're taking ultimately is the idea of them trying to expand their capital, trying to make them the best capitalist. And so when we still have that structure in place, even inadvertently, even the most moral, happy, altruistic capitalist still has that financial incentive, and still at some point will try and act in their own interest. And again, I want to stress that I'm not saying social democracy is just worth abandoning, because we live in a moment that has capitalism. It's important to try and be pragmatic. But in terms of taking those radical left-wing steps we've been discussing across this stream, one of the things which I think we need to identify is that when we have a capitalist system, it is critically attached to the right-wing radicalization that we're seeing cause so much problems now, because all those people who have been in favor of Trump trashing American democracy and have been in favor of ICE demonizing and persecuting immigrants and such, and every other culture war nonsense, they are doing this in large part because it will make financial gains for the wealthiest in society. Like ICE pay so many corporations to help service the job they do, be it detaining immigrants, be it the military gear they get, the the stuff they get to wear. Like, oh, there's so many avenues of commodification and such. Trump, as we said earlier, right, his family just like making investments and using the White House as a tool to making themselves richer. Like it's naked capitalism. That's what fascism is. So I think whilst obviously we exist in society now, and it's important to not ignore the conditions we're in, we also, as part of those steps forward, need to be willing to say, okay, there's something fundamentally wrong with a system which lets us get to this point in the first place and is so corruptible as the capitalism we have now.
I think that like we can have capitalism. I just think that it needs to be greatly decoupled from our democratic institutions, which allows people, regular people, to a slither of power to be able to rein in the excesses of capitalism, um, and collectively, that can happen. And I think that collectively, it can happen in even America because, like we said at the beginning, democratic policies are popular here. Um,
But they're
taxing.
undermined critically by that capitalist system, though, right? Like the, because I agree what you just said there. We definitely can decouple it, but
Mhm.
can you see that it's that bit harder? It's much harder when there's people with exceedingly more wealth than us, basically saying, "No, I don't want to do that," because they stand to lose their power, right?
Yeah,
Like,
that's why we got to start decoupling it. That's why we got to like get money out of politics and
but like if you decouple it, but we still have these people, like, because like, presumably, obviously, you agree with like taxing billionaires and such, right, and
yes,
making them pay and such.
yes,
But I think because ultimately, like, I don't think that this is something sustainable. Having people that wealthy, right?
yeah.
But we're still in favor of, or you're still in favor of capitalism, which is what led them to becoming billionaires in the first place, right? Where they're able to use their wealth to just buy up tons of resources and have that massive revenue stream.
Because I'm in favor of taking that wealth and putting it in place. Because for one, I'm not even sure that we would be able to create the amount of wealth we do under capitalism, under any type of like socialist system.
But
So
so go
I,
ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
so if you just you might not agree, but just like for the sake of this point, just give me that. Let's just say hypothetically we can't create that kind of wealth under a socialist system. The resources, the total amount of resources that the world has, cannot happen under a socialist system. Um,
I would fundamentally disagree,
you would
but
disagree, okay? But
so
so for me, this is where the disagreement is. But for me, like I am in favor of the system that creates this kind of wealth, this kind of resources. I'm just in favor of a system that also allows the democracies that these systems work under to be able to distribute those resources in ways that maximizes prosperity and minimizes suffering.
But I mean, firstly, Puna just makes a fantastic point in the chat, and his profile picture still. Why bother with capitalism if you plan to redistribute anyway? Which we'll come into in a second. But I wanted to touch on that creation of wealth because the world, as you say, has these resources which would still can still exist in different systems, but it's not as though America, because it is capitalist, has this stuff. It exploits, as lots of Western countries do, a series of networks which allow wealth and resources to funnel towards America and the UK and other Western nations because of the history of our planet, right? Like the colonialism, the extraction of these resources from the global south and such. And so as a result of that, we have these, it's important to stress as well that, like, whilst obviously we enjoy a higher quality of life than many people in the global south, it's not as though we are the capitalists really. Like we're workers. We're people who are still at the near the bottom of a massive pyramid that
Yeah.
sees like Amazon, Walmart, except JP Morgan or whatever, like just dominating our lives through the market because they control so much. So if we had a better system that maybe instead of having like a few people at the top, you had democratic processes allowing resources to be managed by the community and managed by experts and not like an investment banker, like you'd be able to firstly use the resources of the planet in a way that actually sees them all used properly and not much of it just going to waste or being sat as someone's commodity, some billionaire's commodity. But secondly, you'd be able to get around much of a problem in the first place. Like you wouldn't have to so heavily regulate these spaces if there weren't millions being put into trying to get people to think a certain way. Like imagine if when we have a scientific paper come out about climate change, it could be released and then just discussed by experts and not by like Bill O'Reilly, who doesn't have any clue about climate science, but gets a nice paycheck telling him to put some doubt onto the scientific opinion or whatever. Like, imagine if, because Trump recently repealed some Obama era like carbon emission protections, right? Like, so imagine if that had been reviewed by like a team of climate scientists and atmospheric observers who said, okay, actually CO2 emissions are clearly still an important thing. We need to be doing more to tackle climate change. Like by decoupling the planet from capitalism, we're taking a step, but decoupling by regulating capitalism, we're doing something good, but the next logical step is thinking, why are we even tolerating this system which is still having to like cause a problem? It's like prevention's better than cure, right? Like we've got to actually tackle the thing causing the problem in the first place.
Yeah, I think the reason we tolerate it is because it has objectively created enough for the world.
But that was the workers, but that was the people.
Yeah, sure. And
like capitalism is just a way of managing that stuff they've created.
So explain to me just for a second, like what does your socialist utopia look like? What does a corporation look like in your socialism?
Well, it's not so much a corporation as it is like a collective of people involved in the industry coming together and discussing what happens in it. So like I don't think anyone's saying like, Bob on the street's going to tell us exactly what to do with all the food in the world. But the food network, the journey from food being grown or produced to getting to your plate to eat involves people on the farm, people in the processing plant, people to take the food from country A to country B, people in the shop, and then like a whole network around that as well. Like it's a big assemblage, and so across that network at the moment, people are underpaid and exploited and literally treated as slaves, right, in some parts of the world, to be able to serve massive profits to some corporation. So what we're saying is, instead of that being the way of doing it, everyone in that process has a voice in what's going on. Everyone gets their rights provided to them by redistributing the wealth that has been hoarded by some. And then when it comes to decision making, we have a democratically agreed upon idea with the opinion of experts at the heart of it, being able to direct us what's going on. Like, for instance, how much food gets binned or discarded or left to rot because it wasn't sold in a shop, because it was produced and made, but they couldn't sell it, so it's like, well, just trash it. Like, that would be something that wouldn't happen in a socialist system, because you'd see, okay, we've got X number of people, we're going to feed these people with
I think that you're wrong in that, like, so we got the food rotting because it would drop the prices of food, and the people that you're blaming, like the top people, that they wouldn't make as much money, right, if the food prices dropped, and that's why we let food rot. But why do you think that, like, Bob the farmer and Mary his wife and Cletus the other farmer next door, a part of this cooperative, wouldn't also want high food prices so they can make more money?
But that's the thing, isn't it? They aren't, like, the average person isn't in this process, isn't Bob the farmer or Cletus or Mary. It's like Bob the Bob the fruit picker who gets minimum wage or less potentially, whilst their corporation makes a 10-figure revenue every year, right? Like it's easy to imagine it as like, we're often led to the conclusion that everyone has a stake in capitalism, everyone is invested, but in reality, our society doesn't have access to the things which are being claimed, right? Like for instance, if you this farmer that is supposedly losing out on their profits of high prices, like if they're in that position, they are also in an advantageous position benefiting from someone else's exploited labor, right? Because they like Bob presumably isn't walking the entire length of their farm to grow this and then sell on. Bob is employing people to do that for him.
Okay.
If Bob's got a small plot of land selling their own things, then great, it's nice that they're doing that, but they didn't, like, they aren't, like, emerging from the earth themselves. They're the product of all the people's labour that came around them. So everyone's connected in society, right? So there's no...
Yeah, if Jose the fruit picker, bottom of the rung on this, if Jose the fruit picker can either let fruit rot on the vines, now he doesn't even have to pick them, and make more money because the price of food is higher, or he can pick all the food and try and distribute it to everyone. What makes you think that the fruit picker wouldn't want to do the easy thing and make more money out of that?
So, say that again, sorry.
Okay,
I'm just going to, in fact, could you... I'm just going to quickly shut my curtains and turn the lights on because it's getting a bit dark. A bit later in the day in the UK.
Okay.
I'll say as well, we'll go to the 2-hour mark or so. And so if you're in the chat, ask questions and we'll ask them in a second, all right? Right, give me 1 second.
What's up, chat? How is the UK doing right now? Are y'all just as terrified as we are in America? Good news is that more Americans are saying that Joe Biden did a better job than Trump now, so that's cool. Okay.
Right then.
So right now we have a system where a CEO of big corporations can choose to not sell food or to not put food in the market in order to keep food prices high, and that's just like food rotting in the fields in order to enrich this CEO, right? That's like a problem that you're looking to solve with socialism.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I am saying is that if we were to be in a socialist system where Jose and Marcus and Taiwan were fruit pickers, and they had say in whether or not we're going to put more food on the market or sell more food, thus dropping the price of food. Therefore, every apple they pick is going to be less valuable. Or pick more food and make it less valuable, but more people get fed. I don't know that those three people, those fruit pickers, would actually pick the altruistic path in that. I think that they would probably, more likely to not, they would pick less, choose to let food rot on the vine so that they could sell their apple for more money.
But we're still, I think, in that scenario, still thinking of this in sort of capitalistic terms, right? Because they aren't picking the food in this scenario. Like the reason they're picking fruit in the previous scenario potentially was because they need the wage they're getting from the corporation to be able to afford food for themselves, to pay their rent, to pay their electricity bills and such, right? Under this system, they're not facing death by exclusion from their human rights. They're not at the liberty of the market. They're involved in the process themselves, because this is their life. This is something they're involved in. They're in their community doing things to actually be part of their world. So you wouldn't see them thinking, "Oh, how am I going to economically benefit from most of this?" Because it's gone into it. I think it's also worth stressing as well that technologically we've come a massive way in producing food and such. So it's not as though we're in like feudal Britain where we need to have everyone doing manual labor. Like society has come a long way. So one of the things which we can actually benefit a lot of people with is ensuring all the tech we have goes towards the betterment of the human experience. So that would mean maybe instead of, say, Amazon being worth billions, but a lot of that stuff just sitting in Jeff Bezos' account, some of that money is some of those resources are actually put back into improving the agricultural experience for a lot of people, like so that you don't have to have as many people putting physical labor hours into producing the food, which would then free up some of those people to pursue some of their other interests. But also, I don't think there's ever a time where someone would intentionally let food rot just because it would potentially increase the value of the food and make them a bigger share of stuff. I don't think that's a scenario which is going to be in an environment where we've got people in the place that are there because it's their interest. I'm not sure that's something that would occur, right? Like it's not something which is instinctive or reflective of what people do.
All right, so let me ask you: when Jose picks the apple
Yeah,
in your system, where does it go?
like the apple.
Yeah.
Well, along this distribution network, right? Because like there's people in the vicinity, the community that might want to have that apple,
Uh-huh.
or further around the place. But you got to remember as well, in a system that's globally cooperated, because that's the key point as well. Under our current system, you have all sorts of weird like situations where fruit is picked in Southeast Asia and then like packaged in South America and then flown to the West because they've decided to. For some reason, it's cheaper, despite the energy that uses and the like absurd like travel distance of that food. In a better system, you wouldn't need to have that because like the apples that are grown in Central America don't need to. It can be sent to places around it. Apples that are grown in Britain can go to Europe. Like it's more you'd be able to manage resources based on what is needed and what is efficient and ecological, rather than what capitalists get the cheapest deal on. So you wouldn't have as much of the distribution problems you see under current systems.
Apple goes into like the distribution center, which is like a local community, or is this a national community or a worldwide system?
Well, it's global, but you'd have like smaller scale stuff within it as well. Like it's not. It's the case that some things are going to be scaled up, right? Like, but apples, or like food and such, you could do locally and nationally because you'd have some foods which are important to that area specifically, but others which would benefit a global thing. Like if there's a surplus of food in one place, it makes sense to distribute that more, and then that same community will then benefit from things they don't have in their vicinity going to them.
So why would Jose pick that apple and give it to Mary, who's a part of this distribution center system, and wants an apple?
Because it makes the world go round. Because Jose is also getting things in his life. Jose knows that he's going home and his house has electricity and clean water, and that he can access the internet, and his kids will have a good education. Like it's a network of things which at the moment we're isolated from because we're having to play them off against each other in a capitalist market.
Okay, so if Jose can be an apple picker, but he can also like go into the sewers and shovel shit, and he's like, no, I'm just going to be an apple picker, but we need somebody to go in the sewers and shovel shit. How do we get somebody to go into the sewer and shovel shit instead of picking apples?
Well, you'd be surprised at how many people actually like engaging in the systems of the world, the health and sanitary systems. It seems like it would be no one, but a lot of people actually take quite an interest in the world underneath our world. But critically, you would still like we as a community we delegate these jobs under capitalism because, as you've just said, people think, oh, no one wants to do this, so we'll force you to do it, otherwise you won't eat. In a better system, we would be invested in our environment, and we collectively would try and solve these problems. So, like, we would think, okay, the reason sewers are often terrible is because people just flush things down the toilet. So, like, the common ones are like tampons, sanitary wipes, often things which shouldn't even go into the toilet in the bathroom in the first place, like oily foods and such, and fatty foods which then congeal in the sewers. So one thing that would make the sewers easier to deal with is if we sorted out the way our resources were ecologically managed, which comes through being involved in the community, being connected to our environment, and not doing everything on a do it as quickly as possible because you've got to maximize your time method. So
So, you're kind of skirting the point I'm trying to make, though. So let me ask you this: do you think there exists a job that is both necessary, but if not given, but nobody would ever want to do it if they don't have to?
a job that no one wants to do.
Yeah.
Well, I think that there are enough people on this planet so that everything that has a role to do. And I also think that in a system where people had investment in their lives, like if they felt like they were in a world that cared for them, they would think, yeah, this is a bit rubbish, but I'm happy to help out because they aren't being like exploited for it, and they know that it benefits themselves and everyone. It's like I put things in the bin when I'm out and about because I know that it benefits me to live in a place that isn't strewn with litter and rubbish and such. I'm not paid to do it, and sometimes it takes time out of my day to like go to recycling or whatever, but it's important. Now, more people would act like that if they weren't having to fixate on their own needs because the market prices it behind a paywall,
Yeah.
puts it
So
behind a paywall.
I disagree with the idea that without capitalism, without like me being able to do a shittier job, but I get paid more. I disagree with the idea that we would be able to get people. We would have massive shortages and a lot of these necessary things. We would have massive short, and we already do in the system we have now. But we'd have massive shortages in like sewage maintenance, garbage maintenance. We'd have massive shortages in like carpentry, hard labor,
I don't think that.
warehouses.
I don't think some of that's true. I mean, so for one, a lot of those jobs, like a warehouse job, for instance, like if we put all the advancements we're seeing and continue to see into that, we actually wouldn't necessarily need all the stuff that we do for that anyway. Secondly, you got to remember that people are currently alienated from their communities. If they were not working because they were under threat of losing their livelihoods, but instead were invested in their communities, they'd be more inclined to, say, engage in the management of rubbish and waste and such and recycling. Think about what is good for their surroundings and help work with them and such. Thirdly, I think that you forget that people have a broad range of interests. Like the most mundane, like for instance, you said earlier in this stream that you weren't necessarily into sport. You didn't find you weren't like keen on watching sport,
Yeah.
but lots of people do. And there's so many sports. Like there's some sports which I have never watched, but there's like massive audience to it and people playing it every single time. And you think, well, how is anyone playing this? But here we are, like Winter Olympics is on now, right? Like, and there's so many sports there that you'd think, well, who's even doing this? But they happen. That same principle applies to all these jobs that we've just named here. There's people who are massively interested in things we wouldn't even consider studying, like sewage and refuse treatment, like the management of recycling. And it's our capitalist system which often prevents people who are interested in these things being able to access them because they are in other parts of the market and denied from education, don't have enough money to access resources, aren't going to be paid enough by the job they want to do, that makes it such a chore. So I think that's important to consider when we're thinking about this issue. We
Yeah.
are coming up to the 2 hour mark, so I will pre-warn you that our finish line's in sight, but still got a bit of time, so you're fine to
Okay.
continue.
I mean, this is just like a fundamental disagreement in how we theorize this thing would work. I like you say, there's people interested in like sewage management. I don't think that people are actually interested in like actually shoveling shit. Maybe like how the sewage lines work and all that stuff. But what you said
Might be.
about like our capitalist system, um, keeping them from this, I can partially agree. I can kind of agree with this. Like, and I think that the government within the capitalist system can be utilized to break down those barriers and allow people that are interested in like sewage management to be able to get the education they need to do sewage management. And yeah, yeah. So that's my.
Okay, well, I mean, I think Punaj is another interesting point. We roll our sleeves up and get it done. Like one of the things I think which is also true is that it's hard work sometimes, but if we're doing it as a team together, then it doesn't quite feel as bad. Like, presumably, like we've all at some point in our life encountered something which we think, oh, this is a bit rubbish, but you know what? Let's just get on with it and do it. This principle would also apply, but unlike today, where society says, well, we'll just force the poorest in society to do it and pay them as little as we can. Instead, it's a team effort. Like if it was genuinely a sewer that was clogged up and there was no other choice but to go in there with shovels, you would be able to say, okay, we need this done. We're a community because we have worked on making life democratic and fair, and everyone is connected to each other. We're gonna get people to do this, and it will be a bit of a nightmare because it stinks, but we'll get it done. And frankly, I think it wouldn't even be as bad as that, because if you've also done things like refurbish the sewers and put money into public works, making it less likely to clog up and be on outdated systems and such, the chances of it being as bad as in places today would be far less, I would say. And I think as well, you're right that the government could do a lot more now to make people get to the places they want to be. But what we're saying when we critique capitalism is that we can do much, much more than what we're seeing now. We're saying that for all the good that may be done with programs within the current state of affairs, wouldn't things be better if we took a step beyond the status quo?
Yeah.
And took that step to the left.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I just fundamentally disagree with what that would end up looking like. I think that we wouldn't be able to create the resources that we have now, and we wouldn't be able to get enough people. Maybe there would be a few on the edges to do the jobs that we need to get done without some sort of incentive, which capitalism creates and socialism wouldn't. Especially if it's like an equal, like completely equal, like everybody gets the same type of socialism.
Wouldn't you feel more incentivized if you didn't have it's like carrot or stick, isn't it? Like if we see the stick under capitalism, where people are basically if you don't work, then good luck affording anything. Maybe we'd be able to see much more productive, happy people in society if we had a carrot instead. Be in your community, because there's a better world if you're able to.
We can have that with capitalism. We just need to be able to. We just need to have democratic governments willing to rein in the excesses that are going to the top, so that we can.
That excess is being used to stop those governments from doing that.
That's and that's the problem we need to tackle. Not necessarily the ideal of capitalism. It's the corruption of our democratic systems that need to be changed.
And that corruption is coming from the capitalism. The capital that has been accumulated is what is corrupting these governments. Elon Musk using millions to fund the Republican Party.
Yeah, we stop that. Like we stop that with regulations, and we do that by electing people who are willing to stop that. And it's possible in this world.
I agree. I agree, and I would love for it to be possible in this world, but like the ultimate, it's like the. I suppose we are saying the same things, right? But like the reason that we're critiquing the capitalist system is because ultimately it's like the thing we're having to work around to try and make a better world. And so we're saying, let's cut out the middleman and think, if we want to go beyond this and not have to continually deal with these issues, maybe we should tackle this element of it and see massive results, positives as well. But,
okay.
As we approach the 2 hour mark, I will say that at the very least, I am a pragmatist, and I do think that as we are in a capitalist system, it is worth still pursuing this avenue. But at the same time, we should be also trying to look beyond it and not limiting our vision to what we see today. I'll say last call for the chat to ask any questions to either one of us. And I'll let you have a sort of, not closing statement, but a thing to reflect on. Because it's been a nice chat, and it would be interesting to maybe talk more about social systems like capitalism and such in the future. But we're going for a little bit of time, so and my voice is starting to croak. So.
Yeah. No, I don't. I mean, like, America is the most powerful country in the world, and we elected a fucking idiot twice to lead us. Good luck the rest of the world. I'm sorry, I didn't do it. um, Other than that, like, no, I don't have anything to say. If anybody wants to talk, get my email address from Owen, and yeah. I just want to say
Awesome.
I'd do a shitty job if I could get paid. So I got one chatter, and he said, I just want to say I'd do a shitty job if I could get paid for it. I'd still wait tables. So he's basically saying like he's only going to do a shitty job if he gets paid. Which
No,
I
well,
think yeah.
I mean, part of what makes a job shitty as well is like also wrapped in those conditions, right? Because like, for as much as like we today associate waiting, the Liberal Cluck is.
Oh wait, hold on. I gotta
students
correct myself. Hold on, I gotta correct myself. He says that I would do a shitty job if I was well taken care of. So maybe
okay,
maybe he agrees with you, which is ironic because I know this guy personally. He's a libertarian. I think yeah. So, um,
well, it just goes to show, right? People have things they like doing, even if the system around it is bad. Ash, he's Liberal Cluck is streaming to his own channel as well, so that the viewer is on his side of things. He's not just like he's not inventing some words. There's another stream happening at the same time.
libertarian adjacent is what he says.
But it goes to show that people like will do things that we even like today we would call like being like waiting on tables and such and like working in a restaurant maybe shitty because it's underpaid and because of capitalism. Like the actual act of wanting to be in a restaurant and being in that role isn't necessarily inherently a bad thing.
Yeah, I just don't think that. I just don't think enough people would. But yeah, that's. Did you want to say something to?
Yeah, well, just that like I said, we agreed on quite a bit in the stream, and there are like I said, there's pragmatic things to take from it. But equally, if you want to take those things left, we've got to be willing to think, okay, what has been fundamentally going wrong for a very long time? What do we need to change to make this a bit better for everyone? And part of that is going to be saying, yeah, American capitalism and at large the capitalist structures of society have some big problems. And if we want to beat Trump and beat the next Trump and the next Trump after that, we've got to be willing to tackle that at core. But that will probably be the end of the stream. I don't know if you're planning to stream for longer, but
I gotta get ready for Valentine's Day shenanigans. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So thanks again for coming on, and to everyone listening, thanks again for listening, and see you all for the next one.
Yeah, thanks for reaching out. Have a good day. Bye.